What's up, everybody? Clayton Sayfie here with EJ Holland. We're from the Wolverine.com. Here on the Wolverine TV, we're breaking down the recruits that we saw over the weekend, continuing to hit the road here as the high school season ramps up a little bit here, nearing playoffs in the state of Michigan. EJ, you were down in Texas, your home state. First of all, what was it like to be back? And I know that you got in a little bit of a debate with some people on the message board. You know, you got your Texas barbecue, you got your Chicago deep dish, which you're now a fan of as a imported Chicago guy. But thoughts on being back home?
No, it's been good. I made the rounds on Thursday and got to see Javier Dunlap on Friday. Obviously, JJ McCarthy and IMG Academy came down here to play, so it's been a lot of fun. Got to see the family and then see some quality prospects at the same time. So good trip so far.
Yep, that's good. All right, so we will get into those games. The games EJ saw, obviously, the headliner being the Saturday game between IMG and what was it, Duncansville?
Duncanville, yeah.
Yeah, Duncanville. Okay. So we'll get into that, and then Javier Dunlap, which you saw Friday night, as you mentioned. We'll start with my game, Oak Park against Southfield A&T. So Oak Park, obviously, drawing a lot of headlines because they have Rivals 100 defensive tackle and top Michigan target, one of the top targets remaining there in 2021, Raeshawn Benny, who did not play. He was out with an injury. He actually had a car accident just before the season started, so a minor leg injury that's held him out. Again, it's only been 4 weeks here in the state of Michigan that they've been playing, so he's been holding out. He's going to return in a couple weeks against Clarkston. Of course, Rocco Spindler, Garrett Dellinger, the top players over at Clarkston, so it'll be really good competition for him in 2 weeks. That'll be the last game of the regular season. We'll be at that game, so obviously we will be able to see Benny in action finally. But we've been to two of his games so far this year and got to talk to him after this past game. And we kind of were able to report that he is nearing a decision. I know it's been kind of all over the place. He's played it close to the vest in terms of when he's going to commit. But he is nearing a decision in the next 2-3 weeks, and he's releasing a date soon on when that's going to be. He released his top four on Saturday of Michigan, Michigan State, Penn State, and Kentucky. And EJ actually had a huge update here at the Wolverine.com today on his recruitment, how Michigan feels, and what he's hearing surrounding Raeshawn Benny, and a recruitment that's really starting to speed up here as he moves up his commitment timeline. So check all of that out at the Wolverine.com. Promo code Blue60 if you're not a member already. You get 2 months of our premium content. But I talked to Benny. I mean, he said a lot of really good things to say about Michigan. And, he sounds like, we were first to report that he's moving up that timeline. So Michigan's going to be a top contender there. They've been a constant. But again, didn't get to see him play. So let's get into who I was there to see actually play, knowing that Benny wasn't going to be out there on the field. Isaiah Marshall, Southfield's 2024 quarterback. This is a freshman, and I was impressed by him. Michigan offered him when he was in 7th grade. Well, obviously, they've been high on him for a while. He's 5'10", 165 pounds. He's only going to get bigger. I know there was a topic on our message board about that. How big is he going to get? I'm not in that field of, projecting that, but to me, when you're a freshman in high school, I know I grew up throughout high school. I know, EJ, you said on the message board you didn't really much, but you were already kind of tall. So it just depends on the kid, but you would assume that he's going to get bigger, have even, of a bigger frame when he gets older. But I'll tell you what I saw is an arm that, he's not like the Joe Milton rocket arm type kid. And again, he's only a freshman, so he could end up being something like that. But it looked kind of effortless, and he would flick the ball down 50 yards downfield. Had some really nice deep balls. A couple of them were not completed because he didn't have quite the athletes to run under those deep balls. Again, this is a team that was 0-3 coming in. They did win 30-6, so Southfield, led by Isaiah Marshall, got the win. But I really liked what he brought to the table. He was smart, checking plays at the line of scrimmage. He actually checked at the goal line out of a run into a slant route. Easy pitch and catch for a touchdown. He had 3 scores, one of them being a deep ball, and then he actually ran for a touchdown as well. So a total of 4 touchdowns. And I think he was poised. I made this comparison Sunday morning. And he kind of reminded me a little bit of Dak Prescott for the Dallas Cowboys. in that he is not superly athletic, or, I don't know if superly is a word, but he's not overly athletic. He doesn't have this massive arm like I mentioned, but he stays under control. He does everything really well. Doesn't have, the number one, arm strength or anything like that, but he does everything really well. So I was impressed by that. I was impressed by his poise. He would stay in the pocket. He took a couple hits. He also got out of the pocket, kept his eyes downfield when he was rolling out. So overall, a really good performance by Isaiah Marshall. Oak Park was an 0-3 team too, and again, they were without Raeshawn Benny. So, him coming after you would have been a little bit of a different dynamic. But through and through, a really good performance from Isaiah Marshall. I'm excited to watch him in the years going forward here. Who knows when he would make a decision, because, again, he's only a freshman in high school. But he looks like he's kind of like a junior in high school type of prospect already, a guy that can lead his team. So excited about him. Tweeted some clips of him. We have full highlights that we'll have up of his game on this YouTube channel, so stick with us here and check out those when they're available. But without further ado, we'll throw it over to EJ. EJ, Friday night, start with that, Javier Dunlap, and watching him for the first time in game in person, and then shift over to Saturday, where you saw J.J. McCarthy, Michigan quarterback commit, Michigan center commit Greg Crippen, and obviously just a ton of other Michigan targets and guys with big-time offers for IMG.
Yeah, for sure. So starting off with Javier Dunlap out of Del Valle, this game was one where I really wanted to see him play against top-level competition. So obviously I'm from Texas and understand the dynamics of classifications and school sizes and districts and all of that good stuff. And so Dunlap plays in the highest classification in the state of Texas, Class 6A. However, the district that he's in is very weak. Most of the concentrated talent is in the Houston area, in the Dallas area. Austin has some top level guys, but not much depth after that. So you don't have, the power teams down in Austin like you do in Dallas or Houston, with the exception of two, Lake Travis and Westlake. Both do happen to be in that district and dominate the district. So I wanted to see him against Westlake or Lake Travis. Westlake has D1 guys on their team. They've produced NFL players like Drew Brees, Nick Foles. So I was really excited to get to see him against those teams, especially since I know his tapes against pretty weak competition. And it was just, it was a bloodbath. I mean, Westlake completely dominated Del Valle. It was 58-0 was the final score. So it was tough to really get anything out of that game, especially since Del Valle's offensive line got blown back. They were constantly in the backfield. There wasn't a lot of room for Dunlap to run. He only finished with 16 yards on 14 touches, 15 yards on 13 carries. He had one catch for 1 yard. So obviously not very productive, averaging a little more than a yard per touch. And so it was a bad game. I mean, it was a really bad game. One of the worst in-game evaluations I've done during my 10 years doing this, as far as in-game production. The things that I like about Dunlap, one, he's a really big kid. He's built really well in his upper and lower halves. I think he could get up to about 225 and play there. He's listed at 190. I think he's already at 200, 205, but he's a really big, stocky kid. I would say he's closer to about 5'11" than he is 6'1", to be honest, somewhere in that general range. But he's going to be a big, stocky kid. I think that he's going to be a rotational guy, a short yardage back, more of a guy that you use around the goal line, or, when to spell a guy like Donovan Edwards of Michigan lands him, or, a guy you just use in short yardage situations wherever you are on the field. So he is built really, really well. And the thing that Michigan liked about Dunlap is that at that size, he posed pretty decent track numbers. Now, they weren't amazing track numbers because he is a really big kid, but they were good for his size. But I didn't really necessarily see those track numbers or the speed transition to the field. The thing that caught my attention the most wasn't the poor stat line. It was the fact that Westlake intentionally kicked to him. because they saw him as slow and not a threat. I mean, I was on the sideline, and even Del Valle's coaching staff realized that their special teams coach or whoever's in charge of getting guys out there to return told the head coach they're kicking to him on purpose. Like it was so blatantly obvious that they were kicking to him on purpose, and so that's a concern because obviously the speed that Jay Harbaugh saw in the spring when he went out to see him in person isn't really lining up on the field. And then on top of the fact that he had really no holes to run through, when he did have some minor creases, he didn't have the vision or the explosion to break through them, and his game just looked slow down, facing a faster defense with a couple of not loaded like a Duncanville with crazy athletes and D1 prospects all over the defense. They have a couple of D1 prospects. They have some big guys, but they're just a really good high school team than they are a D1 factory high school. So, but even so, Dunlap just looks slower than he does on tape against an attacking faster defense with better kids. So that was a concern. I still think there's room for Dunlap. I think fits good in this situation. I think he would have been lost at a school like Oklahoma State, which is his other finalist in the Big 12, which is more of a wide open, speedier conference. I think the Big 10 fits him. So there is reason for Michigan taking a guy like Dunlap, but I'm not having super high expectations based on what I saw. And again, evaluations go beyond the stat line. I get the stat line was bad. I get a lot of that had to do with Westlake's penetration, with the fact that there weren't a lot of holes. But I didn't see a ton out of Dunlap that got me really excited about him. He's rated as a high 3-star prospect. I didn't see anything to make me think he's not not that. I probably would grade him as a mid 3-star prospect. I've seen a ton of backs, a ton of prospects overall in Texas, spending a ton of time out here covering recruiting. So I just don't really see it that much with Dunlap, but I do think he can still outplay his ranking because he made a business decision to pick a school that was the right fit for him. And a lot of times fit can outweigh talent levels.
All right, so that's Javier Dunlap. Let's get into your game on Saturday. One of the few times here that you're seeing J.J. McCarthy. Feel like you're seeing him every couple weeks here. The quarterback commit for the Wolverines, and then Greg Crippen, his offensive lineman in front of him, Michigan center commit, playing, of course, a lot of Michigan targets, like we mentioned earlier, playing in that game as well. Give us the rundown there from the IMG game.
Yeah, J.J. McCarthy played a lot better than he did when I saw him a couple of weeks ago, and he did it on basically one foot. He actually suffered an ankle sprain, and it became more apparent as the game wore on that the ankle was bothering him. I actually didn't really notice it at first. There was a lot going on. The game was really fast-paced to begin, and then I think it was early second quarter. He tried to throw a wide receiver screen, and he just completely fell, and I was like, "What the hell?" And I noticed he was kind of limping, but I didn't really, put too much stock into it until, more people on the board started asking, and I saw him kind of limp out at halftime. And I was like, "Hey, JJ, what's wrong?" And he was like, "Oh, I have a sprained ankle, but it's okay." And so, but then after the game, I talked to, some of his teammates and guys around IMG, and they were like, "Yeah, JJ was not supposed to play today, and he forced himself onto the field." So, that just tells you a lot about JJ's mentality, his competitive nature, and the guys really respect him. I mean, I talked to a few of his teammates, and they all talked about how much they love JJ McCarthy, how much they look up to him as a leader and want to follow him. So I think that was impressive. Probably the most impressive thing since I've seen JJ so much, just having guys that he's only known for a few months really, give him glowing reviews. But on top of that, like I said, it was a really good game for him. He wasn't able to do as much with his legs, obviously, because he was limited by the ankle injury, but he was really on point as a passer. He had a beautiful 61-yard touchdown early in the game. He came back and threw a missile on a 17-yard slant for a touchdown. Then he had, a hellacious throw. It was a 23-yard kind of like a post route in between both safeties where he just, you can see the video. I think people have really liked it where he just slings it. And not a lot of high school quarterbacks can make that type of throw. So I really liked what I saw from JJ. Finished with 250 yards, 3 touchdowns. He exceeded expectations in that game. And I think you have to remember that JJ's been a little up and down at IMG Academy, and a lot of that has to do with timing with his receivers. Chemistry is not really there. You're getting guys from all over the country to come play in the midst of a pandemic and expecting them to gel together as a team immediately. And so I think that's why JJ hasn't put up like the gaudy monster stats, but I think he's getting more comfortable, and that was evident in this game where he kind of put up a usual JJ stat line and kind of looked like he normally does. And it's against a great team. Duncanville came into the game ranked top 10 in the country by Max Preps. Historically, Duncanville has a really strong defense. They do have D1 prospects all over the field on defense, including Alabama linebacker commit Kendrick Blackshear. So for JJ to put up that type of performance on a bum ankle against a great defense, I think speaks volumes of him. Obviously, Greg Krippen on IMG Academy as well. We've talked a lot about Greg Crippen, so I don't want to, beat a dead horse. I said that on the message board, but the positives for me for Greg Crippen is one, he's added strength to his frame, and I think it helps that he's at IMG Academy where he gets top-notch training at top-notch facilities. I do think that he plays with great technique. He has great hand placement, so I can see why Warner likes that. He won't have to be coached up too much. Some things I don't like about Greg Crippen, while he's added strength, he still hasn't gotten big enough to handle bigger defensive linemen. So he dominated Ravenwood's tiny Austin Fox defensive lineman, but he didn't really do that against Duncanville. He actually got pushed around too much for my liking. There was one clip at the end of the game that I was trying to film Tyler Booker, the Elite 2022 offensive tackle we'll talk about in a bit. And in that clip, you see Greg Crippen fly into the video because someone tosses him to the side. So, I think he just needs to continue to add strength. Like I said, he has added some from last year, but that's development that still needs to, come into fruition. He still needs to get bigger and stronger. He shouldn't be getting, flung around in the interior of the offensive line. But the other thing that really has me a little down on Greg Crippen is just his feet. He's not really quick when off the snap. When he had to down block, when he had to pull, he was really slow and heavy-footed. So that's those two things, adding strength and continuing to shape his body and improving his feet are the two biggest things with Greg Crippen, as well as just finishing blocks. He didn't really, latch on to guys and bury people. I've seen him in 2 games. I don't think he had a single pancake in either game. So, and I saw him last year as well against Hoover in Alabama, and it was kind of the same thing. So I'm a little lower on Greg Crippen. I know he's ranked as a Rivals 250 prospect. I see him more as a 3-star guy right now. I definitely prefer Raheem Anderson. And I've seen, it's funny, the last time I saw Greg Crippen, then I saw Raheem Anderson, then I saw Greg Crippen. Now I saw Greg Crippen again, and I'm going to see Raheem Anderson next week. And seeing them back to back like that, I think it makes more sense for Raheem to be the center because he has some of the intangibles and some of that nastiness that Crippen does not have. So it'll be interesting to see how those two kind of progress once they get to Ann Arbor. As well as the underclassmen. As far as the underclassmen go, I think that Tyler Booker, like I mentioned, Elite 2022 offensive tackle that Michigan is making a top priority. I said this when we had the show a couple of weeks ago, but he's one of those rare guys that can be a top-level defensive tackle or offensive tackle at the next level. He had a really strong game, especially battling against Amari Abor, a Rivals 250 defensive end for Duncanville in the 2022 class, who Michigan's also recruiting. And even though those two were battling for a lot of the day, Abor had a really nice game, had a couple of stops, showed off his length, his strength, and his ability. I think he's a name that Michigan fans should know. A few others that stood out to me, Nick James. I'm going to keep, riding that bandwagon. I think he's extremely underrated as a 3-star prospect in the 2022 class. He's a true 3-tech defensive tackle. That's high on Michigan, and he had a really strong game against the Duncanville offensive line with multiple D1 prospects. So I'm all in on Nick James. I think Michigan should be as well. Kamari Lassiter, a 5-star safety in the 2022 class, had a really strong game. He's a big safety that excels when he's around the box, playing against the run. He can cover too. He had an interception against Ravenwood a couple of weeks ago. I like what he brings to the table a lot. And Michigan's quietly in the mix for him. I think Kamari Wilson is a guy that that Michigan fans should be paying more attention to. So he had some really good things to say about Michigan. And Wilson was another guy that was like, hey, JJ McCarthy, man, he's the dude. Like, I really love playing for him. And so going back to JJ just really quick, I mean, it was just so great to talk to all those guys, Kamari Wilson, Nick James, Tyler Booker, and just hear all their thoughts on JJ. I don't think you can get a better leader in this class than JJ McCarthy.
Yeah, and I think that is, music to Michigan fans' ears because, they've had the quarterbacks here, and I think Shea Patterson wasn't quite the leader. Speaking of another IMG guy, then people thought he would have been, when he came into Michigan. So J.J. McCarthy looks like the total package at the quarterback spot, and obviously some great insights there from you. So we're hitting the road once again. Austin Fox, who is not here on the show today because he did not go to a game over the weekend, will be back on the road, so we'll be at 3 games. EJ, we'll start with you. I know you are headed back to the great state of Michigan, as you tweeted the other day. We have our plan lined out. But I'll start with me. Sterling Heights Stevenson against Grosse Pointe South is where I will be headed. Grosse Pointe South. What's that?
You got the best game. That's a huge one.
Yeah, so I'll be seeing 5-star defensive back in the class of 2022, Will Johnson, go up against Michigan offensive tackle commit in 2021, Giovanni El Hadi. So it will be fun to see Giovanni El Hadi. And first, how do we mention his name without mentioning the absolute, he tweeted a clip of him driving a guy all the way to the bench. He got flagged for it, so I don't know if the coach was too happy. He was, tweeting that out there. But and then he mentioned that it was kind of like the blind side. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, take that, Austin Fox, making negative comments. No, it was great to see Gio do that. Gio's a kid you want to root for. I mean, he has such a great personality. He has all the tools. I've said he's built kind of like a bodybuilder. Like he could have, played the mountain on Game of Thrones. Like he looks terrific. And the one thing you want to see from Gio is finish off blocks. And he finished off a block. So that was great to see. If he does that, more often, we're talking about a guy that I think can reach 5-star status. That was the only thing missing from him, was his ability to finish off blocks, showing off that nasty streak. And so if he continues to, build upon that and have more clips like that, we'll be all in on the Gio bandwagon. And it's, like I said, it's great to see. That's the one thing you want to see, and you want to root for Gio. You want him to do well. So he's been one of the leaders of this class. So I was really happy to see it for sure. I feel like a lot of times, if some kids like try to prove, recruiting analysts wrong, the analysts get defensive and are like, oh no, well, it was just one clip. But no, I mean, that's great to see. Like, you want kids to improve on the things you critique them about. So that's awesome to see from Gio.
Yeah, it is. And hopefully, I'll be getting clips of him. Hopefully I'm the one that, goes viral and he drives a kid all the way to the stands again. So, but you want to socially distance at the same time, so he's got to be careful. And it'll be great to see 5-star D-back Will Johnson, who you saw a couple weeks ago. But I mean, you were raving about him. I know he's not on a great team in Grosse Pointe South, but he does everything for that team. So that should be quite the experience to see the Will Johnson show there. You will be seeing Alex Van Sumeren, and then you will be seeing on Saturday Raheem Anderson and Cass Tech in a big game against Detroit Kings. So Friday night up in Bay City, Saturday in Detroit. Give us a little preview.
Yeah, Alex Van Sumeren's a kid that I love this offseason. His workouts looked incredible. I posted a couple of his workout videos, and I know Michigan fans really loved how Van Sumeren looked. So the biggest thing with him is just putting what he did in those workouts on the field in pads. And I talked a little bit about that a couple of weeks ago where, Derek Shepard, for example, looked amazing in workouts, but it didn't really transition to the field as much as I would have liked. So I'm hoping to see that out of Van Sumeren. I haven't seen him in pads yet. This will be my first in-game evaluation of him. So I'm excited to kind of bring you some video and some clips of him. Alex doesn't get a ton of attention because he was such an early commit. His brother's on the roster. He's up in Bay City. He's not in the metro. So I'm excited to go see Van Sumeren because I'm very, very high on him, but it's mostly based off of the in-person workouts I saw. I want to see him go out there and dominate in pads. So excited to see him. And then I didn't even really know this was going on until I saw a tweet about it. But, Cass Tech's playing Detroit King in a rematch for the Public School League Championship. So I was like, hey, it works out. Might as well catch that game, too. So I was originally going to drive to Bay City and back to Chicago in the same day. But I was like, this opportunity can't really be passed up. The first one was a classic. And I get a chance to get another evaluation of Raheem Anderson. Dante Moore, I'll see him for the third time this season. I feel like I'm part of the Dante Moore fan club. So I'll see Dante Moore again. And then Cass Tech, obviously, home to Mammoth 2022 defensive tackle target, Dion Walker. So it should be a fun little trip. Get to see a pair of commits, a couple targets, and keep it locked into the Wolverine.com. We're offering 60 days for free using promo code Blue60. You can follow me for videos at EJ_Holland_TW, and you can keep it locked in on this YouTube page for all your game highlights as well.
And where are we sending Mr. Austin Fox?
Oh, yeah. We're sending Austin somewhere. We completely forgot about Austin. He's not with us. So
he can't defend himself when you rip on the Ravenwood D tackles. I hope they're not watching either, but
no, maybe they'll get upset like El Hadi. But no, we're sending Austin to Birmingham Groves Oak Park. I feel like you guys live at Oak Park now these days. You see them every week. But he's going to go catch up with Benny again, but mostly there to see Jaden Mangum, a big-time prospect in 2022. As far as offers go, he's not rated as high as his offer list would lend you to believe, but he's a very intriguing prospect, and he's had a really good season for Birmingham Groves. He's a Michigan offer. We haven't talked about him as much, but he's a lengthy safety that also plays some wide receiver. So interested to hear Austin's thoughts on Jaden Mangum. So that should be a good game for him to see.
There you have it. As EJ said, keep it locked at thewolverine.com. Put in that promo code Blue60. You get 2 months of our premium content for free. But we'll see everybody, and we'll recap our time on the road this weekend next week and come back with a nice report for you. And we'll see everybody next time.